I go hunting every year. I'm not a trophy hunter by any means. I do it for meat and almost purely for economic reasons at this point. Taking a few of deer off my property once a year keeps my freezer stocked and the grocery bill way down, which is important because finances can be tight sometimes. As a little relevant background, the bulk of the meat is kept in a large freezer in the garage, and about once a week we pull out what we will need for the next week or so. Which means the freezer is normally only opened about once a week. My son, 15, has decided that he is vegetarian about 6 months ago, which my wife and I have no problems with. We started making meatless meals twice a week and made sure every other dinner was such that the meat was separate from everything else so he could still eat with us. This has been working great for the last 6 months with no complaints. However, last week when I pulled the meat for the week out of our freezer in the garage, he decided to come behind me and unplug the freezer. I guess he thought we weren't doing enough to support his cause. He never spoke to us or complained about our twice-a-week setup prior to unplugging the freezer. Well, as you can imagine, with a now unrefrigerated pile of meat in the summer heat, it didn't take long for the meat to start to rot and stink. The freezer kept the smell in for a while, so by the time we finally noticed, everything was completely putrid. I asked my son if he knew what happened, and he proudly said that he had unplugged it on purpose and now we would have to be meat-free. I told him that he didn't have the right to ruin a freezer full of meat and raise the family's grocery bill without discussing it with anyone. I told him that as part of his punishment, he had to clean up his mess. Meaning dispose of all of the rotting meat and either sufficiently clean and sanitize the freezer or purchase a new one out of his savings. He called me the idiot for making him interact with meat in any form. But he made the mess he needs to clean it up. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, I'm a vegetarian myself, and I'd argue what he's done is worse because the deer have now died for no reason. Plus, it's not okay for him to intentionally ruin the family's groceries and waste money. Buying a new freezer might be overkill, but I don't think it's unreasonable at all to clean it. Sounds like a new freezer is needed. 100% NTA, I'm plant-based and have been for 4 years. I wouldn't even unplug someone's meat supply because it is against the whole point of being vegetarian or vegan. It forces additional deaths of animals completely unnecessarily. By the way, you hunting a couple deer per year that are on your property and presumably of decent size and age is actually more ethical of you than your kid destroying all your stores of deer. Best of luck dealing with him, he needs education and not eating meat. Not the idiot. And I have also smelled the very specific and unforgettable smell of a freezer full of game some wildfowl left unplugged for a year. He will never forget this lesson. He will need a Tvec painter's suit from a home improvement store, gloves, goggles, and like 6 jars of Vicks VapoRub. And it still won't be enough. And warn the neighbors. I, 43M, met a woman, 34F, online several months ago. We began talking and we really hit it off. She's a really pretty woman, but she does have a slight flaw to her physical appearance. She has a bad case of TMJ, which makes it so that when she gives a big smile, one side of her mouth curls up into a huge grin, while the other side basically stays still. Every selfie we've taken together has her looking like this. While I absolutely accept that this is just a condition she has, I wish she would do what she can to make it less noticeable. We've recently started talking about becoming engaged. Both of our sets of parents are ecstatic since they both apparently thought that grandkids weren't happening from either of us. But when the subject of engagement photos came up, I told her that she should not smile quite so broadly so as to let her true natural beauty shine through. She got really angry at this and said that the curled up lip on one side is her natural beauty since it's her. She said that she isn't even sure if marrying me is a good idea. I'm the youngest of 4 kids in my family and the only boy. My father, 71M, when he heard about this told me that it was no wonder that none of my relationships have worked out through all these years and that I need to apologize to her and beg her forgiveness. My mother, 67F, said that I should have been nicer but that she understands. I know all of this sounds bad, but I just really want her to be at her best. That's not for my sake but for hers. You're the idiot. I know all of this sounds bad, but I just really want her to be at her best. That's not for my sake but for hers. Liar. Your GF isn't uncomfortable with her smile. It actually sounds like she likes it. You are the one who is embarrassed. What would be best for her sake is if she didn't marry you because you put perfect photos ahead of her happiness. You're the idiot. You should never, ever do that. Apologize right now. Her smile is her natural beauty, and if you're offended by the pictures, she deserves better. You're 43 years old and you should know better. If you want her to be her best, then let her smile however she wants. Your dad is 100% correct and you are a huge idiot. You're the idiot. Long story short, 3 years ago my fiance's mom was trying to leave a relationship and needed a place to stay. At that time we lived in a very small, cramped 2-bedroom apartment with the second bedroom converted into my office because I work from home and need the space for my employment equipment, 2 monitors, printer, fax, filing cabinets, etc. Despite me saying that I truly didn't want to give up my space, he begged and pleaded until finally, I gave in. He said, and I quote, "When the day comes you know I would do the same for you if your family ever needed it." I was honestly still far from happy because realistically speaking his mom didn't need a place to go at all. The house she and her BF had was in fact hers, and she had owned it for years, so why she was the one to move out is beyond me. It wasn't a toxic relationship, she just wasn't feeling it anymore. Fast forward 2 months of her staying. She has completely taken over my office space, and I have my equipment set up in the only other spot available, directly in front of my TV. She moves out and back in with her BF. Never paid a dime and didn't even bother taking most of her crap with her, which took me more than 3 days to clear out with my fiancé. Not impressed. Anyway, we upgrade. We bought a 4-bedroom home last year with the plan of expanding our family. This was prior to finding out he is fertile. It is sad, but honestly, it is what it is. I'm not wildly upset about it. However, my mom just lost her home due to foreclosure. She was renting, and her landlord didn't pay his rent, so the house was foreclosed, and she was given a 3-day notice to quit. My mom has my siblings with her, 14-year-old twins. Very well-behaved and clean kids. She needs a place to go. We have 2 rooms available. I bring it up with my fiancé, and he immediately says he isn't comfortable with it and that he doesn't want his home to feel like it isn't his by allowing other people to move in and take over. So I brought up his agreement years back and stated that I allowed his mother to move in for literally no reason, whereas my mother legit needs a place. He is now saying that that was years ago, and the situation is 100% different because there weren't 2 teenagers running the house when his mom moved in. He says I'm an idiot for trying to force this on him and make him do something he isn't comfortable with. Am I the idiot? I have no words. I would rethink the fiancé's status. He's up to bad and proving he doesn't value your family the way he demands you to value his. How about offering him to stay with his mommy dearest if he can't fathom sharing a 4-bedroom home with your siblings for a short period of time? I mean, she should return the favor, eh? Not the idiot, you deserve better. Lol, it is totally different when his mother moved and you had to make all the sacrifices. This time, he'd have to sacrifice something. What a selfish jerk. Not the idiot, seems that he was more interested in helping his mom out and putting you out of place more than actually being a partner in a relationship. You may want to rethink this fiancé since he seems perfectly fine with your mom and siblings out being homeless since it'll make him uncomfortable. Never mind that you were pushed out of your office at this pestering to help his mom who didn't need to be there. I, 25F, moved away from my town and to my husband's, 32M, hometown after we got married. The main reason is that he suffers from a medical chronic condition and needs to be near his family. I was pregnant with our first baby and was nearing my due date when my husband had to travel out of town for work for 2 weeks. Because of this, he couldn't be with me in the delivery room, which wasn't expected. I wanted to ask mom to come to be with me, but he assured me that his family are there to help and I shouldn't be worried. He then made me promise that I don't let anyone see our son for the first time in person before him besides his stepmom who was supposed to be there for me, and I agreed. His stepmom was with me when I went into labor, but she stayed away since she is the type that doesn't get too involved and keeps her distance. She's also the I don't do diapers type, meaning she doesn't offer help with the baby, and I shouldn't be expecting it. She dropped me and my son off at home and asked that I only call if there was an emergency. I felt helpless. I asked my neighbor for a few favors but needed real help with the baby, so I called my mom. She knew I'd just given birth and asked if she could come to help me, and she drove 4 hours to come to stay with me. She helped out tremendously and I'm so grateful for that. My husband stayed away for a few more days and then came home. Once he saw my mom he got so upset, repeatedly saying I broke the promise that I made him by not letting others meet our son before him and I explained that I needed help and he brought up his stepmom, but I replied that she dropped me off and left, that's it. Besides, he and mom are on good terms. I didn't get why he was mad she met her grandbaby, which was inevitable. He said it wasn't about mom since it could have been anybody else, but it was about me disrespecting his wishes and breaking the promise I made. He reminded me that he's also the parent and he gets a say too. At this point, I said he was overreacting, but he replied that I forever tainted the memory of his son's birth and broke his trust and proved to him that my word is worth crap now. Mom tried to give us space, but I said she did nothing wrong. She came to help after his stepmom left, so I can't be blamed for asking for help. He told me to stop giving him excuses and admit I wronged him with what I did, and then started avoiding me and just kept focusing his attention on our son. He keeps acting cold towards me, calling me a selfish promise breaker and expecting me to make it up to him. He wanted an apology, but I haven't given him that yet. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He prevented you from organizing help for yourself. He didn't come home after the birth. My son would be single, and I mean that. He needs to live in his hometown because of a chronic medical condition, but goes out of town for 2 weeks when his kid is being born. Like, I know there are some professions where that would be a thing, but the imbalance there leaped out at me. What about your needs? What about your recovery? Your husband is isolating you at a time when you need support most. Not the idiot. Not the idiot, but your husband is for so many reasons. The best part is that you think it tainted the memory of his son's birth? He wasn't even there. So he has no memory of it and thus has no say in how you wanted things handled. P.S. We did talk to each other on the phone several times, and he already knew that his stepmom refused to stay with me and told me to just call if something happens, but I didn't tell him about calling my mom knowing how he'd react and decided to wait till he got home so we could talk about it.